Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to assemble this Panther A kit made by Italeri. This plastic miniature kit is in 1/56th scale or 28mm scale, and you may notice that this kit has the Warlord brand in addition to Italeri's brand. Italeri are who makes the plastic kits for Warlord. I believe this should be exactly the same kit as Warlord's Bolt Action branded Panther A, so if you're after one of those, I would suggest shopping around. There is a price difference. If you're paying attention, you'll notice that this box also includes a smaller, bright yellow box that contains glue, paint, and a brush, which is a nice addition. Looking at the back of the box, we can see a photo of a painted example of this model, a couple of illustrations showing different ways you can paint the tank, and a list of suggested Italeri colours. Also, the additional box shows a couple of examples of other kits available in this range, including a Sherman and some German and American infantry, as well as that Panther, though I think the picture of the Panther A box might be a simple misprint rather than a completely different kit. The picture is different, and it doesn't include the SDKFZ171 part of the name, but the product code is the same. Let's not worry too much about that. Let's see what's inside the box. This is the first of two sprues. It contains the hull top and bottom, tracks, and some other bits and pieces. This tank has a Zimmerit coating, which I'm not usually a fan of, but other than that, it looks pretty good. Some of the details aren't as crisp as I would like, but it is fairly neatly detailed and moulded. There is a weird black swirliness in the plastic on both of my sprues. I'm not sure if that's anything to be concerned with at all. The tracks look good, but I am not looking forward to assembling them. The second sprue contains a lot more parts, like wheels, which, like the wheels on the Italeri Warlord plastic Cromwell, are solid rather than separate pieces, which I don't really like. I think it looks especially bad on vehicles like the Panther with interleaved road wheels. There are also turret parts, hatches, and all kinds of other bits and pieces needed to make a Panther a Panther. The detail is mostly fairly crisp, though some things like the machine guns are a little bit soft looking. There are quite a few mold lines, more than I found on the other Italeri, branded for Warlord, kits that I have built, though there are no especially awful ones that I can see looking at the sprue. I will of course point them out if I do happen across any. In addition to the two sprues, you get this lovely Italeri and Warlord flyer. This instruction sheet, which is different to the kind you will see in the kits branded for Warlord. It's bigger, though it does seem to contain the same sort of instruction diagrams you would see on the Warlord version. Unlike the Warlord version though, this one also has some painting suggestions, though they are black and white, unlike the colour images on the back of the box. It also has some numbering examples for German tanks, to be used in conjunction with the pictured decal sheet. I quite like that they've included this, it's thoughtful. Speaking of markings, this decal sheet for a Panther is also included. I was amused. To be honest, I am a little bit surprised that they don't just use the same decals that Warlord would include with their kit. Unless this is what they ship with too. I don't know, I haven't got that kit. These decals are just simple numbers and crosses, but that's all we really need, and they do look to be fairly good. As the box proudly proclaims, you get glue, which is tiny and adorable. Lego Man for scale. Some paint, though I was a little bit disappointed to discover that you only get one paint, Iraqi sand, which I'm not entirely sure is the correct colour for a Panther. It's also Vallejo paint, though the box speaks of Italeri paints. Are they actually the same? I don't know. Anyway, to apply that paint, a brush is also included. Nothing special about it, it's a little shorter than the average brush, but it can never hurt to have more fresh brushes laying around, so I've got no complaints. Let's get to work on this thing. As the instructions suggest, I'm going to begin by assembling the track sets. Like with the Warlord Cromwell, the road wheels are all one solid piece connected to the hull sides. This didn't look super great on the Cromwell in my opinion, but it was okay. The difference here is that with the Panther's interleaved road wheels, we can see that the wheels are just cast right into each other, and it does look kind of bad. There is likely to be ways we can hide that with paint or mud, but I would rather not have to do that. To assemble the tracks, we must first attach the inside of the drive sprocket. The teeth should be facing towards the road wheels, and the flat end should face where the tank's front will be. Next, the outer drive sprocket goes into place. Both of these parts are keyed, but not very effectively. The drive sprocket rotates pretty freely, though not all the way around. That's not really a problem, some rotation is helpful anyway. Now we are ready to attach the tracks. Much like the Cromwell I built a while ago, or the tracks in many of Plastic Soldier Company's 15mm scale kits, it does seem simple enough. Unfortunately, these parts do not fit together very well at all. I don't know if it was something that I did, it probably was, but I had to cut the teeth off the inner portion of the drive sprocket just to get the tracks to sit properly. And even then, they didn't really want to join together properly. Very annoying. If anybody involved in the design of these kits is watching, take a look at what Rubicon do with their tracks. Just saying. I did of course eventually get both track sets completed. It was my least favourite part of this build. At least the gaps in the end of the track sets are very minor compared with some results I've got when building these kinds of tracks, though this one that goes on the right rear is pretty bad. Next we attach the track sets to the lower hull. The method for attaching the track sets to the lower hull is a bit weird in my opinion. There are 2 slots in the hull and 2 thin pole-like bars on the track sets. They slot into each other. It works, but not all that well in my opinion. I think this could be better implemented. At least it was quick and easier than putting the tracks together. Next, I glue the jack and exhaust parts to the rear of the hull. I'm not sure why Panther had such a weird array of exhaust pipes. Something interesting to read about later, I guess. The part goes on quite easily. It simply slots into the holes in the back of the hull part where the Zimmer is obviously missing. I then want to glue the whole rear into place. But first, I had to clean up a couple of, well, I don't know what they are, raised bits of excess plastic. Where these were would have caused the whole rear to not sit properly on the lower hull. Next, I glue the whole rear into place. This has a slot and protrusion system like the tracks, though I feel it's a bit more effective here. Easily glued into place with no problems at all. It is now time to begin working on the upper hull. It may be tempting to just jump right in and glue this part right onto the lower hull, but before that can happen, the hull machine gun needs to be glued into place. This is done from the inside because the part is the entire machine gun and not just the end of the barrel like you would find on some kits, though it isn't a particularly well detailed machine gun. Fortunately, all we'll be able to see of it is the barrel. The gun has a pole in the top part above the trigger. This is what holds the gun into place. It fits right into this hole on the inside of the hull. It's very easy to glue this part into place. It is also the worst hull machine gun I have ever seen. Seriously, you can see right through it. I wonder whether the person who designed this has ever even seen a Panther. That is not what the machine gun port should look like. You shouldn't be able to see in there at all. The poor gunner could easily be shot through those gaps. I guess it could look okay from some angles or at a large distance, but it's pretty bad. I kind of hope the Warlord branded Panther is an entirely different kit. I'm not really interested in buying one to find out, just in case it is the same. Well, I guess we came this far, may as well continue adding details to the upper hull, starting with the driver's vision hatch thing. It simply glues into place like so. I think this part also looks kind of bad, though it could certainly be worse. I was tempted to model it closed, but it didn't seem to fit very well in that position. Next, I glue on the travel lock for the main gun, which doesn't look too bad, though it does have a solid piece of plastic where the gun should go. This is fixable with paint trickery. Then, a headlamp. No complaints here other than it being a bit fiddly due to being such a small part. Be sure to position this nice and straight. After that, I glued on this, what I think is the wooden jacking block. It simply slots into the side of the hull here. All of these parts were easily glued on and didn't need a lot of mold line removal. Continuing with the details, I give the driver a hatch, which can be modelled in either the open or closed position. If you look closely, you will see that I have chosen closed. Next come the spare track links. These are very easy to glue into place because they are guided by the little nubs on the bottom of the part. I found these a bit annoying because they had quite a bit of flash between the track connection parts. Easy enough to clean up, just a little bit annoying. Next, the gun cleaning kit goes on the left side of the hull. I should have noticed before applying the glue, but the mounting hole for this wasn't big enough, so I widened it with my knife. Then the part went on with no issue. I then attached the side skirts. These are designed to both fit on a specific side. You can see this one would sit way too far forward, but this one will fit just right. They're not particularly hard to get into place. When they are attached to both sides of the lower hull, it is time to glue the upper hull into place, which sounds like it should be simple enough. Unfortunately, the fit is pretty poor. It does fit, but it is a bit gappy, for lack of civilized words. These gaps here in the side of the hull obviously shouldn't be there, and they do look quite bad. It can of course be fixed with some green stuff, but that's a bit of an inconvenience. An earlier step that I forgot was to attach these shackle things. They were hard to get off the sprue without breaking them, and I did break one of them, so I'm only going to add them to the front of the tank. They don't look too bad. It's a shame about that gap right across the front of the hull. Another 2 should be on the rear here. We can just say that some no-good punk kids stole them, for reasons. Now we can move on to the turret. I started with the gun. I like that this gun has been bored out. Saves me some time drilling holes into the solid muzzle brake that other kits have. It didn't need a lot of work to remove the mold lines either, which is nice. I then set about assembling the mantlet. This is pretty simple. I take the inner mantlet part, which should have the 2 protrusions on either end facing downwards. Then I glue the outer mantlet onto the inner mantlet, making sure the larger hole goes on the tank's left. Or, you're right if you're looking at it from the front. When doing this, keep in mind what angle you want the gun to be elevated at. It will be very hard to change once these parts are bonded. I then glue the gun into the mantlet, exactly where you think it will go, in the hole in the center. There is another part that should be glued into the back of the gun. This is for people that want their gun to elevate and depress. Obviously, this would mean not applying glue between the inner and outer mantlet also. I clearly glued mine. I don't feel a need to have the gun move. The gun part is not keyed at all, so you have to be careful when gluing this in that you don't position the muzzle brake all lopsided. Nobody likes a wonky muzzle brake. The main body of the turret itself isn't too bad, though I'm not a fan of the Zimmerit. It does look okay, except where the parts join the sprue. It's kind of hard to remove the burr left behind from removing the part when that burr is on top of the Zimmerit and not a flat surface. If the join locations were smooth, this would be no big deal, but it kind of ruins the Zimmerit. I guess it's a minor complaint and it can be fixed, but it's a little poorly thought out. The turret does go together easily enough. The back wall glues in very easily, though being a dingus, I did forget to film that. Then, the bottom part that locks into the hull can be glued into place. Simple. Next, I glued the gun and mantlet assembly into place on the front of the turret. I had hoped the protrusions that hang down from the inner mantlet would cover the burr removal marks from clipping the part off the sprue, but that wasn't the case. The final details to go onto the turret are the commander's cupola and hatch. The part does go into place easily enough. It is guided by pins that fit into corresponding holes on the turret roof. I did need to use a tiny bit of force to get the parts to go together, but nothing excessive. Next comes the commander's hatch. I make sure it's properly centered and pressed down. If you are so inclined, you could easily model this in the open position. I have chosen closed. I then install the machine gun ring. It has tiny nubs that fit in the holes on the cupola, making it very easy to position. It doesn't look too bad. I didn't bother installing the machine gun itself because honestly the part just doesn't look all that good and I think it will easily break off. Probably even during storage or transportation. I didn't think it was that big a deal. One thing I did add, despite the same risk of it being broken off, is the radio antenna. I figured communication on the battlefield is kind of important, or something like that. I then locked the turret into place using the handy locking tab thing. I'm not really sure what you would call that, but I do like it. It eliminates a need for magnets. It fits together rather well, except, oh no, the turret won't rotate a full 360 degrees. Oh well, that is one 28mm scale Italeri Plastic Panther Ausf A completed and ready to join my mighty German force for bolt action, which only really consists of tanks. I will need to do something about some Kraut infantry sometime soon. This entire build took me about an hour, which included maybe 15 minutes or more to build the tracks, which included a lot of time spent holding parts while glue bonded. Otherwise, it was fairly quick to put together, though mold line removal, as it often does, did take a good chunk of time. Overall, I think this model is fairly good, though I'm not 100% satisfied with it. My main issues being that the whole machine gun looks so bad. It just bugs me. Also, the upper hull didn't fit particularly well, and I'm definitely not a fan of the single-piece road wheels. I would much prefer at least the 4 outer road wheels to be separate pieces. That wouldn't be too much extra work in my opinion, though I am more of a modeler than a gamer, and I do understand why such an arrangement would appeal to gamers that don't really care about building models so much. Those things aside, the model does actually look pretty good, especially from a distance where you can't really see the little imperfections. This is how you are likely to see it on the gaming table anyway. I think once I paint it, a lot of those little imperfections will be harder to see and the tank will look much better. I am a little bit curious to see if there is any difference at all between the Warlord branded Panther A kit and this Italeri branded one. I doubt there would be, though there is definitely a price difference. This kit cost about $30 Australian in a hobby shop. It comes with glue, one paint and a brush. The Warlord version wasn't in the hobby shop, obviously as it's marketed towards gamers, but I see it online where I would normally buy gaming stuff for $45, and recommended price is apparently even higher than that. And with that, you only get the tank, no glues or extras. I would advise anyone considering buying a Warlord Panther to do some shopping around and find the best price. Actually, that's pretty good advice for anything, really. I obviously don't know if they're exactly the same kit. Maybe Italeri used different plastic for theirs or older molds that develop more flash. It would explain the price difference, maybe, though I think it's more than likely that they're exactly the same. I just don't think this model is quite up to the same standard as the other plastic kits by Italeri that I have built, despite them being branded for Warlord. They were much better models, neater and crisper details with better fitting parts. I mention this because I don't want this kit to potentially put people off trying Italeri and Warlord's other plastic kits. They're not bad. That said, if I do feel the need for another Panther, I won't be buying the Warlord version. I will probably eventually get a hold of one of Rubicon's Panthers, partially just to check it out, and also because I prefer my tanks without Zimmerit, and I believe Rubicons don't have Zimmerit. Just a personal preference really, and it obviously doesn't stop me from buying vehicles that do have Zimmerit. I think I've rambled enough about this Panther. Hopefully you found this video helpful or interesting. If you've got any questions, comments or suggestions, I would love to see them in the comment section below, especially if you have any experience with either the Warlord or Italeri versions of this tank. If you like the videos I make, you can help me out quite a lot by simply subscribing here and on my original Herbert Erpaderp channel, a link to which is in the description below. Doing things like clicking like and sharing the video any place where people might find it helpful or interesting would also be very helpful. If you really like what I do, please consider supporting me via Patreon at patreon.com/HerbertErpaderp. A link is in the description below and in the end card of this video. I've added some new rewards and goals there, so check it out. Suggestions for more stuff like that are always welcome. As always, thanks for watching. Farewell.